Sir Alastair Cook, thank you so much for joining me today with Imperial Corporate Events. We're here today to talk a little bit about your cricketing career, life growing up, a little bit about sport and music events as well, and hopefully you'll be able to give our listeners some advice along the way.
I hope so.
Thank you for being here with us today. So I'm going to start by asking a little bit about your life growing up. So, of course, you've been heavily involved in sport and music. You've been to boarding school. It sounds like growing up, you had a lot going on and you were a busy childhood. Is that correct?
I'd say so. I was randomly, I don't quite know how I ended up, but I ended up the choir boy at St Paul's Cathedral in London. So obviously I lived in Essex to start with, in a small village, and then one day, I don't quite know how, but I ended up kind of going to boarding school in St Paul's. My mum and dad were both very musical, but I was always loved sport, and I think I used to do short tennis on a Monday or whatever it was, badminton on Tuesday, football on Wednesday, but I could only do that if I had to join them in the church singing on a Friday. It's kind of the thing, like
the condition.
The condition to do it, and then ended up doing audition, ended up in St Paul's, and it was probably the hardest thing I'd ever did, but definitely the best thing I ever did for terms of my development. I think you have to, not you were looked after very well, but it was like you worked very hard. And, the first thing was 7:45 was an hour practice singing, and then you did school, then you had 45 minutes service, 45 minutes practice after, then a service, then homework, then music practice, and went to bed. And if you're doing that at 8 or 9, gives you the value of a bit of discipline and hard work. And I think I kind of took that into whatever it is. So yes, I look back with kind of amazement now that that's happened. My oldest daughter's just about to turn 10. And you think, well, I'd have been living away from home during school time for 2 years already and doing all the singing. Yeah. So it was very different, but interesting way.
Do you think that busy lifestyle of playing, football, then tennis and cricket, do you think that prepared you for the career you were going to go on to have?
I think the bit which prepared me for the career would have been just the discipline of St Paul's. I was never the most talented cricketer, and that's not just me, I suppose, being modest. It's like I always kind of had the ability to perform under pressure. And I suppose if you actually look back to when I played, when I did the music, actually, you were singing in front of people all the time. Yes, you weren't on your own, but you weren't like singing solo, but you were part of the choir and actually performing on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all that time. You just used to being out.
In front of people.
And actually, it didn't matter, if it was a small service on a Monday or one of the big services on TV. It was the same. The music never lied. Yeah. The music was still the same music. Do you know what I mean? Like you either did it well or you messed it up. And actually, and I think that was which kind of helped my cricket. It didn't matter whether I was playing for like Essex under 12s or Malden under 12s to, when I made my debut for Essex or England, like. Still the same game, isn't it? Like all the external stuff, yes, it takes a while to get used to, but I was better at being able to handle that stuff.
Was there ever a moment when you felt like you had to choose between music and cricket, or?
No, my talent was never ever. I was a half decent musician, but I compare myself to a club cricketer. If I had to compare myself to cricket, no matter how hard I'd have tried, I would have been a decent club musician. Okay, there's only one way. That's the only way I could describe it. Yes, I was half decent, but never good enough to make me professional. Also, I think, and this no disrespect to music or music teachers or whatever, I didn't have that undying love for it. Yeah. The undying love and the thing. The passion was 100% always sport, and it was always sport. Even when I was singing in St Paul's, it was always going back to sport, and then cricket, just because I suppose when you're naturally slightly better than everyone else at your year group all the time, you're always going to go back to that sport.
Yeah. And on reflection, if you we can all reflect on things, but if you think about that 8-year-old self at you when you were younger at school, do you think your 8-year-old self would be proud of your achievements and what you've done in your career?
I think it'd look back in disbelief.
I
think even when I was 16, 17, and I was, set my sights on playing cricket professionally. That was the aim. It was never to play. The aim was to play for England, of course, but I actually just wanted to become a professional cricketer. And but I'd never thought ever I'd have had half a successful career. It's beyond reality as a 9-year-old, 10-year-old to think you might be playing for cricket for England. Even at 16, 17, I never thought I would. So Yeah, I don't know what it would have been proudness, but I think, yeah, Jesus, I gave it a good old go.
Yeah, I suppose as well at that age, you don't actually understand what it means to sort of.
It is also beyond reality.
Yeah.
Like you're watching these guys on TV, or used to go and watch Essex County Cricket Club, and these guys were heroes. They were like demigods to a person like me at 9 or 10. I was like, you know, if they walked past me in the ground, or actually I remember Peter Such once drove past us in the car, and he had his name on the side of the car, and I was just literally thinking, oh my God, how much money I'd give to have a name on the side of my car, to have a car park as well, Essex. I mean, you wouldn't think anything worse now than your name on the side of the car, I'd get scratched straight away, but you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, the thought it's reality and actually going to do it. And when you get closer and closer, you know, I think it was about 18, well, I scored a couple of hundreds in the second team for Essex. I was like, do you know what, I've got a chance now of, I'm not saying I was going to play for England, but of making it as a first class cricketer.
Yeah, and I bet that was an amazing moment, quite overwhelming to feel that.
I scored a lot of runs at schoolboy cricket. I played for England under 15s and stuff, but I've never, like, when I've gone back and played Essex or second team, or even Essex under 19s, I've never really dominated or done that, but obviously something I was learning in my game, and then that one day I did kind of make that breakthrough of scoring 100 for the second team. It kind of, at late, like some of the guys scoring at 15, 16, I'd have been 18 at the time. So it was like, well, if I can do it then, you know, the side I did it, people who played a lot of, it was pretty Surrey actually, and they'd played a lot of those, the bowling attack had played a lot of first team cricket, so I was like, well, they're no different to the bowls I play in the next level up. So that it was a good realisation, thinking, obviously you never know how you're going to do, like if you have one good year, the next year you don't want to be a guy who has 1 year and a second season syndrome. There's always so many little hurdles you have to kind of get past, but I don't really remember the beginning of the question now, but like
we've gone off a tangent. It's okay. So we've obviously spoken about you at school, and now talking about your teenage years. In your autobiography, you mention that you had to sacrifice a teenage rite of passage, which was the lads' holiday to Ayia Napa. Yeah. Do you think that have you always been somebody who's put your career first and
I think at that stage it was like, do you go there or do you go to this cricket thing? And at that stage it was a very easy decision.
Yeah.
You know, I was like obsessed by it. I was like swam twice a week before school, ran twice a week before school, all with the purpose of being fitter, stronger. I used to bat in the mornings. You know, all that stuff was at school because I wanted to become the best cricketer I could become. That was at 14, 15, 16. So all that other stuff, like, you know, yes, I missed out on it, but I didn't really miss out on the experience of it. So there was the rite of passage, it was just the dedication I thought we needed to. And I kind of took that into my professional career, that I was always the one I felt trained harder than everyone else, because that was my competitive advantage.
Yeah.
You know, I'd run at 5 in the morning. Why do I run at 5 in the morning? Because if you get yourself up at an uncomfortable time to run at 5 in the morning, yes, you could run at 11 o'clock, but I think you know, then when you then go and step out into uncomfortable environments and doing something which is hard, like opening the batting or playing under pressure, you're kind of half used to it. Yeah. It's kind of some mad thing. Then you sat there in the changing room, you think, well, actually, I'm ready for this, and that's how I operated as in my career.
Do you think? Well, there'll probably be listeners who maybe have regrets and sacrifices that they had to make and to better their career, and looking back, think, oh, I wish I'd done that, or spend more time doing this. What advice would you give people who are?
I mean, hindsight's amazing.
Yeah,
hindsight's like it's the best thing ever. Like I was quite clear and said, right, I'm going to leave no stone unturned. I'm going to have fun doing it, but I'm going to work my socks off doing it. So that's 3 very clear things to do. So it was I just kind of lived by that rule. But like, you know, some people go to the extreme where like, their diet's amazing, they wouldn't touch alcohol, whatever, and that's fine. But I thought, for the way I operate, is like, well, I'm going to train as hard as I can, hit as many balls, but then when I'm not playing cricket, you can go and enjoy yourself.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
that kind of gave me that balance of it, rather than thinking, God, I've done all my training and I've got to do it, like, you know, sit there 2 in the afternoon and not do anything else, because, you know, it just became too much of that. I wanted to make sure I had something outside of cricket in terms of that, if I had a beer, it wouldn't affect how I played. I then would train hard the next day with that kind of way of life, rather than just cricket.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to.
Well,
to
I think so.
Yeah.
But then certain characters need something else. Other characters wouldn't train as hard as they like. Do you know what I mean? You've got to find the balance on what works for you.
What works for you? Yeah, definitely. Did when you started playing professionally for England, did getting recognition and sort of fame, did that change the world around you?
I don't think so. I mean,
No.
you're going to have to ask. You're going to have to ask certain people. I'm sure there's moments I got it wrong.
Yeah.
Like, does it affect you? Of course it does, because your life changes. It does. You know, as you mature, as things get thrown your way, you see things differently than you did as a 15-year-old kid or 16-year-old kid. Yeah, I had some very good people around me, like Graham Gooch, who was my hero growing up, became my kind of coach, like not my personal coach, but a coach, like not private coach is probably the way. As in, like, you'd always go back to mentor is a better word probably. And if he saw things, just a quiet reminder, because you don't get it right.
Yeah.
Like, you're 22, 23 years old, going up, you know, getting these amazing opportunities. You might not get it right all the time, but it was a bit strange. But
Yeah.
it's nice, isn't it?
If you could go back in time, and again, it's that whole thing about hindsight, but if you could go back in time and tell your younger self one thing from what you've learned, what would it be?
I think the biggest thing in my career was working out how my mind worked.
Okay.
In terms of like what your mind goes through when you're playing under pressure.
Yeah.
Because I spent quite a long time battling that. Like going out there and trying to fight the bloke on my shoulder. Once I learned to accept him, I think it was about in 2010. I was seeing a sports psychologist trying to improve, and that was the thing, trying to accept the bloke on the shoulder rather than trying to fight the bloke on the shoulder would have saved me a bit of angst for a few years. But again, rite of passage, and you've got to go through the stuff. I changed my technique once as well. If I had told my time again, I wouldn't have changed my technique, but when you sit there afterwards, you say, well, actually, I've changed my technique, tried to improve myself, it hasn't worked. What I've got now, what I had before the change of technique, was the best version of myself. Yeah. Actually, but you almost have to do that little process to then be more comfortable with things. That is just what experience is, isn't it? Yeah. That is just what, when you're in the business or any business for a number of years, you just get to know. And actually, that's so you would tell yourself not to bother with that stuff. But if you hadn't have done it, there'd always be a bloke on your shoulder saying, God, why didn't you do it? Why didn't you try and do that? But at least I know what I was given and what my technique was, because it was pretty much the same technique at the end of my career to the beginning of my career, was the best version again of me.
I want to touch on that a bit more about the bloke on your shoulder that you've mentioned. Yeah. So you refer to it as the gimp, is that correct?
I did, yeah.
So for anybody listening that doesn't know, it's based on Steve Peters' mind management chimp paradox theory. Could you talk a little bit more about how you were able to switch off? I'm intrigued to know how you could switch off that voice and how you can't switch it off.
So that's you read all the books about the chimp, and it is about trying to switch it off. Actually, I think it's impossible. I think your brain in any situation, any given day, is put under certain things where you're always going to have that self-doubt, because that's human relationship. If someone else might see it differently, the pressure of someone doing this interview they might be thinking, actually, to me doing an interview, I don't bother about it. But if I was in your shoes and actually having to do the interview, that would really stress me out. So guess what? My gimp, as I call him, or the chimp, whatever you say, would be flaring up loads of different things. Yeah. So everyone kind of gets adapted to different things in their life. Yeah. But rather than fighting it, I was like, right, how do you deal with it? And actually, certain days he would beat me. Yeah. But my aim was to try and beat him more times than he beat me. Because there's no one in the world who doesn't listen to him. There's no one in the world who doesn't beat. If they say they beat him every day, they're lying, because I don't think it's possible. But if you go back to why I started it, was trying to make myself a better performer more consistently. If you waste less energy trying to fight him, you can spend more energy on doing what's important, which actually as a batsman would be being able to clear your mind and focus on the ball coming down to that 0.3 of a second or 0.4 of a second. Yes, the bloke's there, but if you waste less energy there, guess what? You're going to make less mistakes, you might score more runs. So it's kind of like that vicious circle. But that was how I dealt with it at cricket. Someone else might see it very differently, the thing, but I don't know anyone who beats that bloke all the time, because it's impossible.
I think it's so good to be so open about it as well, because I think we all have doubts and we all go through that. genuinely think since the pandemic as well, sort of the topic of mental health and being open about our emotions and feelings, it's allowed us to talk openly about these things.
Well, I think it's that there is the element of being open, and there is
Yeah.
that, and absolutely it's great. But there is also the element of actually, in my world, and this is, I say my world when I used to play, you can be really open, you can be all that. But unfortunately, there's only one person who can go out and deliver the goods under the pressure and stuff, which is me. Sorry. So I'd go out there, and no matter how open you are with your psychology, how open with this and that, there's sometimes you just got to buckle down, grit your teeth, and do it. Because that's the only way of doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm all for all the other stuff because the support, it's very different. Was when I first started playing cricket, you go to the gym. Do this, but it was a sign of weakness to go to see a sports psychologist. But actually, your brain is so powerful, and so much there that doing a bicep curl is good, but actually you get more benefit from understanding your brain. So certainly now, which is far better in the world, that it's not a sign of weakness. It's helpful, but there is also that element of all the blokes in the world. So you've got to walk out to face the first ball of the Ashes. You can do all the stuff, but actually you just got to knuckle down, grit your teeth, and try and
get
try
on
and
with
do
it.
Yeah, exactly. So there is.
Do your best.
And actually that, which is an interesting way of life, interesting thing now, because actually, there is that element. Like, so actually, the sports psychologist, you could actually argue that 5 noughts in a row is good. Because they'll say, well, how are you mentally? Did you do this? Did you do this? And you tick all your boxes off. That's brilliant. So actually, you can actually say, you take the results out of it. I was exactly what I wanted to do. Yeah. Actually 5 noughts don't keep you in the team. 5 noughts doesn't mean you're a good player. So there is, there's the reality and theory, and the theory of a book saying you're brilliant because you sorted your mental side out. Well, actually, the reality is you still got 5 noughts. So you've got to level. Do have to have some sense of reality is the right word, where you actually say, well, actually, it wasn't great. Yeah. You've got to score runs, find a way. You might have dealt with the gimp, but you've got naught. Actually, it doesn't matter how you deal with the gimp, don't get naught. Yeah. Ultimately. Which is ultimately runs and wickets were what was our kind of currency as a player.
So we've got a lot of people who'll be listening who are business owners, CEOs. You've of course had to, you've been team captain, you've had to lead, I imagine, a whole range of diverse characters, personalities. What are your key strategies for leading a diverse team with such big personalities?
I've been asked this a number of times, and there is no answer for it because everything, there is not one. I could give you 20 cliches, and it doesn't actually make it. It goes back to the theory. It's great. That's what the theory says. Like for me, leadership, which you learn and you only get better at doing it by doing it. Ironically, I'd have been the best leader after I'd finished being England captain. Because ultimately, the day I took over England captain to the day I finished, you're learning kind of that stuff. But after 5 years, you've had enough of doing it because it's a really hard job and it's an amazing job, but you are tested every single day. The stuff you learn from it make you a best leader then, but actually you've got nothing more to give to the role. So it's a really strange thing. There's no acting in leadership, is there? In my opinion, certainly as a cricket captain, might be different to business. Obviously, I can't tell you what it's like leading a business because I've never been a CEO or whatever. But when you're in front of your in a cricket team, you're there all the time with them. You have to be so authentic. You can't act. You can act for little periods, but you get found out very quickly. The hardest thing about cricket captain is you've got to do all that and then still go out and perform and still go and deliver. What my primary purpose was as a batsman was to just go and score runs. So everything was thrown on top. It's a great challenge though, because you're right. You got, as an England captain, you wouldn't know quite what you're going to get dealt with that day. You still have to go and play cricket, and you get tested on it, and it was brilliant. You try and mould a team, you try and build a team, you try and, you've got an experienced player who knows what he's doing, you've got youngsters who are coming into the team, but they still know what they're doing, but trying to get them through international cricket, get them in. There's so many different elements of that. You've got coaching staff, all that. Brilliant. It was great fun, but incredibly challenging along the way.
I can imagine there's not one correct way to do it then, because every
Ben
experience
Stokes
is so differently.
Ben Stokes is doing it what he thinks is the best way for his team to do it.
Yeah.
And he's gone down a very different approach to what, say I did or what Straussy did. There's no right or wrong to do it, in my opinion. You just the beauty of what Ben Stokes has done, and I look back in my career, it's like, well, actually, I did it the way I thought was best for that team with that group of players.
Yeah.
Did I get every decision right? Well, of course it didn't. It's impossible. You have to make a billion decisions a day all the time. Cricket's a great game because, you know, so many different opinions on it.
Yeah.
You've got 6.5 hours standing in the field. Someone will say, why are you not doing that? Well, yeah, absolutely. It's a bit different in business, but
they're not in your shoes when they're asking.
Oh no, I now commentate on it. I now commentate on it, and when you're out of emotion, it's very easy. When you're sometimes stuck in emotion, you can get blindsided, and some of the skills trying to take yourself out of it. Of course, I didn't get it right all the time, but it's very easy to captain when you're definitely away from the environment. Like when you sit and watch the game, it is a lot clearer sometimes than when you're actually in it.
Yeah, I can imagine that. You mentioned there about getting youngsters in and playing, and in a world that, in my opinion, it's so digital now. You know, there's social media is everywhere. Everybody seems to be online all the time. How do we encourage younger generations to get out there and get playing cricket more? Yeah,
so when I was talking about youngsters in like England player into the team, but I think the only way is. Well, it's everything. You've got to have a successful national team, because what inspired me was something on TV to watch it. So you need that. Then you need basically places for them to go and play. England, I actually think we've got a fantastic setup. Genuinely, like if you actually look around the game of cricket in England, you know, there's great facilities everywhere, great cricket clubs, great ethoses. Could it be better? Of course it did. Could be more money. Well, the weather's different. We can't control that. But you know, ultimately, it's in a good spot. Would we like more kids to play? Of course we would. But we're competing against lots of other sports. Obviously, football, or number one sport. But just get kids outside and playing is most important. Whether it's playing, for me, whether it's playing cricket, whether it's playing football, whether it's playing rugby. Anything which, as long as kids are active, we all know the benefits of everyone being active, which is more important than anything else, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. So you retired from Test cricket in 2018. Do you think that is there almost a gut feeling when you know it's time to move on and it's time to take the next step?
It was for me. It was for me. I in 2018, I'd been like battling the idea for a year or so. And it's not easy when I go back to the beginning of this year, I said all I wanted to do was play cricket for England. That was my dream, and actually you're living the dream, and whether you've done it for 10 years, 11 years, whatever, like it's still the dream. But then when you realise you're looking in the mirror and you think, well, I'm not it quite mean as much to me anymore, and I thought that was a dangerous place to be, and I ultimately thought I didn't have much more to give to it. I wasn't the same person as I was driving this team forward for myself or whatever, and I just thought, do you know what, it's time to walk away now with your head held high rather than fight the thing. And it wasn't just that I woke up in the morning and went, I don't fancy it anymore. It'd been going for 12, 13, 14 months of kind of like battling that stuff, and whether it was because the captaincy took more out of me than I thought, all that kind of stuff, probably thrown into the mix. But I look back now and go, it was 100% the right decision. Like there's loads of advice at the time, take a sabbatical, take a year out, but all that kind of stuff, it was definitely, and to finish like I did, it just made it even easier. The last time I ever batted for England, I scored 100. Is quite a nice way of going out on your terms, and actually for going out on your terms means not many people do it. Most people get the tap on the shoulder and say you're dropped, you're not never play for England again. The last moment of an England shirt is getting dropped. My last moment in the English shirt was actually walking off, winning a Test series, and the last time I batted, I scored 100. So, actually, mentally for the next step, for me, made it easier.
Yeah, walking out on a high.
It was a nice way to go.
Yeah. So, Alastair, of course, as you know, at Imperial, we sell corporate events. We send our clients all over the world to international and national sport and cultural events. Could you please recommend 3 bucket list destinations for our clients to go to?
Recommend for me, what I want to do, or for them?
Let's do for you first.
Okay.
Where do you want to go?
So I've always wanted to do the Masters at Augusta. That's
Okay.
a tick. I want to do, this is a mad one, I just want to go to see an IndyCar drive, and they go around NASCAR and they go round and round in the deep south of America. But that's me. Other events which I think I must go to, a big boxing event.
Okay.
I've been to a couple of those, and I just think the atmosphere is just brilliant. Froch Grove's second one at Wembley, went to Joshua Klitschko, just unbelievable events. I just think, I mean, whether the Saudis keep them all and we don't quite get the same stadium atmosphere, but that was, those 2 sporting events. I was there moment. And it doesn't matter how good it is on TV, because you're there, sitting there, it was just
it's a whole different experience.
It is. And also go to Kenny Road to watch Luton play. Okay. Of course, that is a lifetime
experience. So if you're travelling, if you could only take 3 things with you to these places? Yeah, what would you take? 3 items.
I think I'll take my best mate. He can come with me.
An item.
Yeah. That's all right.
That's all right.
I can take one. What else would I don't think I need much more. Credit card.
And
that's it. And a passport. You can go and keep going. There you go. There's the 3 things.
Exactly.
You go wherever you want.
So we're obviously interviewing Phil Tuffer. What do you think? What 3 things do you think Phil's going to say?
Pack of fags. Am I allowed to say that? Yeah. No, he's given up smoking, hasn't he? What would he say? I would have to say he'd like a bottle of red, pack of fags. And I reckon he'll need his mobile phone, because he does need help getting places.
Love that. So
sorry, Tuffers.
So we won't play it back to him, don't worry.
Okay.
So our clients attend events such as Grand Prix, the Ryder Cup, the Ashes, Royal Ascot. Is there another event other than cricket that you like to regularly attend?
Ooh, I'm a season ticket holder at Luton Town, so I enjoy going there. I haven't been for a while, but the Ali Pali darts is at Christmas. Yeah. Is again a brilliant day, stroke night, stroke muddle of a man you finish at the end. But again, one of the great experiences if you're quite happy to be dressed as anything or attacked by anything or fancy dress. And I do think it is cricket, but go to the Edgbaston Test match of an Ashes one. Yeah, is superb. The only thing I'm going to do, I've got to do, I would like to do, I should say, is be in the Lord's Pavilion when the Ashes is on. Because although I played in it, I remember walking out in 2009 and the noise that the pavilion made, walking out, Strauss and I walked out to bat, and it was just, I can't describe the atmosphere of the MCC members, like the kind of posh cheering. It's kind of like, but it was honestly electric. And both Strauss, it was so unexpected for us, because, I mean, I'd never done it before. I don't know if Strauss, what happened in 2005, whether he knew what was about to come, because we tapped glass and goes, that was amazing. I was like, Jesus Christ, it's incredible. I was like, then you're bang, here you go. The bloke on the shoulder says, don't get knocked. You have to walk all the way back through it and like be stone silent. So I'd like to be in there without the pressure of having to go and play. Yeah. Just experience that.
So other than cricket, in terms of artists, if you could see any artist, dead or alive, who would you
that's
watch?
easy. I'm glad you said dead or alive. I would love to have seen Queen. Queen, I just think they're watching Freddie Mercury perform, just super. I'm telling you how many times I've watched his Wembley sets.
Yeah, me too.
I just think he's got something, I've seen Elton John a few times. Yeah. And I've been lucky enough to be on stage with him when he's been playing the piano on a cricket thing, and there's just something about those musicians. Yeah. And I'm actually going to put Ed Sheeran in the same thing there. I just think watching those, there's something special about them, and you can't describe it. It's like watching what makes a great batsman. There's sometimes you just can't describe it. It's called like someone says, it's just time. They've got time. Actually, those great musicians. Yeah. Rolling Stones again. There's something about them which you can't put a finger on. You can't put the words in, but you're seeing greatness by watching it. I'm going to put those four artists and bands in that kind of category.
Okay. What about if you were treating your daughter? Who would she?
Well, well, Taylor Swift. If you get Taylor Swift tickets,
Yes.
that is, I mean, they're like gold dust, aren't they? But I think the amount of Taylor Swift I've listened to in the car, yeah, it's enough. It's enough for anyone's lifetime, but they seem to love it.
Yeah, and we'll just finish up really quickly on what do you enjoy watching the Grand Prix?
I enjoyed. Yeah, I've been to great experiences. I've been to a few Grand Prix taken by McLaren and Red Bull.
Okay, which have been your favourite Grand Prix?
Well, I've only done the British ones.
Okay.
So that is again a foreign Grand Prix.
Yeah.
I'm going to be really sad actually. Like the not the Monaco, the Belgian Grand Prix.
Yeah.
I've always would like to go because I think that track at Spa is just a proper driver's track.
Yeah.
Abu Dhabi, I've been to Abu Dhabi enough times that I'd love to see the Grand Prix there and go for it. So Abu Dhabi, Spa because I'm a bit of a car geek and like to do that. But I think Abu Dhabi for like just the experience of an Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
We send our clients to Abu Dhabi to watch the race from a yacht.
Yeah.
So
there's a way of doing it,
you
isn't
just
it?
let us know. We can
There you go. Where do I sign up?
Yeah. Well, I think we've got to wrap up there. But thank you so
No worries.
much for joining me with Imperial Corporate Events
Thanks for having
today. It's been great.
Perfect.